Hey, pass me a beer.
Look, at least promise me you won't drink. Alcohol always leads to trouble.
Hey, who wants to play Drink the Beer?
Right here.
You win.
All right, what do I win?
Another beer.
Just have a cup of coffee.
Beer it is.
Coffee?
Beer.
I'd kill for a beer.
Cheap beer and a sympathetic ear. Step right up.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Beard Hops Podcast. We are doing our very first live on-site, well, not live, but our very first on-site podcast featuring Lakefront Brewery. And we have with us today Russ Klisch, one of the founders and owners of Lakefront. Am I saying that right? Founder and owner?
Yeah, founder and owner.
Okay.
And president and, chief bottle washer and all those types of things I do. Pick up all the paper outside. And
chief bill payer.
Yeah, make sure. Thanks for coming, though. Appreciate that.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is awesome. We've been looking forward to doing this on-site stuff for, well, we talked about it when we first started doing podcasts almost 2 years ago now. And we'd like one day to get to the point where we had the equipment to do on-site.
Sure.
On-site podcast, everything so
Keep that
far.
thing.
Oh, okay. So far, everything so far has been, pretty much just online through Google Hangouts and stuff. So,
No, I have to say, Lakefront was my first brew tour I ever did,
Good.
and it was shortly after I even realized there was craft beer.
Was it this location?
It was here.
Okay.
My buddies brought me up here for my birthday, and it is by far the best brew tour I've ever been on. Still, it's a great tour. So
Thank you. Yeah, I'll give all the credit to that to my brother. I always kind of joke, but it's kind of true that I used to give a tour like I was a science teacher. I thought the only reason people would want to take a tour was to learn how to make beer. And
Yeah.
my brother didn't know as much about beer, so he just told jokes and gave out beer first. And everybody took his tour, nobody took mine. And you kind of figure out back then people are there for two reasons. They want to drink beer and be entertained.
Yep.
And
Yes.
so it's an important part. And so we hire theater people. And
those tours are very entertaining.
thank you.
I've been on both the normal and technical. You have a technical tour.
You have
and
a
then
technical tour too, yes.
I went on both of them. So
yeah,
they're
we've
great.
got some questions about the tour coming up here in a little bit. But so you are president, CEO, founder, chief bottle washer. Is there other members of the family that are?
It's my brother. I'm kind of like Mr. Inside. He's Mr. Outside.
Okay.
So he kind of still handles a lot of, or some of the marketing. He does a lot of the beer dinners, other promotional events. I know he's up at Vegas tonight in River West doing some beer appreciation society thing. And so he'll be there, and so I might show up later. But then he's the guy that normally sets all those up.
That's cool.
Cool. Well, we are in an amazing building here, and
very cool building.
We'll get to how this building kind of came about, but where did Lakefront Brewery get its start? It was founded in 1987.
87.
Okay. And then how did things kind of go from there?
Yeah, we basically, I guess the story I tell is that my brother's birthday was coming up. I moved into his house shortly after I graduated from college, and I didn't have a job. And since he let me live there, I figured I'd buy him something for his birthday, and I bought him a book on how to make beer. He was talking about that. And so he read the book, and he made a batch of beer, which looked like hell. And I'm thinking, how this is going to taste. And he gave me a bottle, and it was not the worst beer I ever had. It wasn't the best either.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I thought, if my brother could do it that good, I could do better. and so I decided to make some beer, and he made beer. We started entering local contests, won local awards, made more homebrew, and made won state awards, and made homebrew and won national awards. And our friends started telling us, you guys should open up a brewery. When you're 20-something years old, you think that's, good advice. And so we, asked a bunch of bankers to give us a bunch of money, and I did not understand that you had to have money to borrow money, and so they all turned us down. So which left us, how do you start this thing? We came up with this idea of starting a brewery as small as possible to lose the least amount of money. And so we found a old bakery building right down the street from us, and we bought a bunch of 55-gallon drums, and we figured it'd be like overgrown home brewing. And essentially that's what it was. We kept our day jobs. We worked weekends. and we started to brew beer for 4 local taverns in the River West neighborhood of Milwaukee. We literally wheeled the beer down the street on the dollies and to these places. And that's how it all got started. Then more bars wanted us, and we discovered used dairy equipment. We brought a piece in here and a piece of equipment in there, and still to this day we're bringing in a piece of equipment here and a piece of equipment there to try to improve the place.
Yeah.
And that's what's out front, right?
If you look at Larry Moe and Curly, that was our old dairy tanks, and they started leaking on us, and it got too small, wasn't efficient. And so we put them on the side, but everybody loved getting their pictures taken in front of Larry Moe and Curly, so I didn't want to throw them out. And then one day a metal sculpture guy comes by and says, you know what I can do? I can cut off the fronts of these, put an I-beam on the back, put some arms on it, and I can mount them out here in the front for you.
Nice.
And then he said I can even put faces on the back. So that's what you have. So some of the most creative folk art in the city is what we see out there. And it's funny. It's everybody gets their pictures taken in front of there, and there's no sign to tell people to do it, but everybody takes their arms and just spreads them out like they're part of the statue.
They just do it, yeah.
And they just do it, and everybody gets their picture taken. So it's funny, it just makes everybody smile, which is the important part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's about. Now, when you first started, I guess looking back on when you first started, what would you say, looking back, were you most afraid of or concerned about that made now you're like, I don't know why I was worried about that in starting a brewery?
There were several things. One was quality, just keeping the quality up and trying to do that. The second part was just cash flow and whether we were going to make it or how much work it's going to go into it or all the money we dumped into it. Because we didn't have any partners. We've never... when we first started out, we had a third partner, and we ended up buying him out, Carson Prafke, after about a few years. We parted ways, but I never had a co-signer to a loan in the entire history of the brewery.
Yeah. Wow!
And so everything you see here has been basically organically built, and still to this day we have low debt to the brewery, and so I think we're doing right. But I guess that's because we were probably so frugal at the beginning. That's how we ended up. But right now, I think it's a good position to be in. But being concerned about money, quality. I guess when we first started out too, we had this theory that some big daddy Warbucks is going to come along and offer us, millions of dollars, and you be our brewer, and we'll build this big brewery for you. And that guy never came along, or lady.
So a side question to that: has any of the large macro breweries ever approached you?
Nothing ever serious. I get a lot of calls from people saying, "Oh, I got this guy that wants to buy your brewery," and you start talking to them, and it's like they don't have anybody. So I've never had any of the large American or European breweries or anybody else. Or there's some other times you get calls from people, and they say, we got this guy in San Diego who wants to build this consortium of breweries. Are you interested? And to me, it's like, essentially what this is all of a sudden you got some boss in San Diego, and it's like I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I didn't quit my job at John's Controls to come here to be a boss from someone else.
For sure.
Exactly. With all the time you put into it too. Yeah.
I think that's kind of a cool thing. Probably I would hope it's a sign of respect from larger breweries to know that you've got a good quality product here, and that they know your reputation in the industry for the last, what's it been, 32 years?
32 years now, yeah.
Yeah. So you're big enough. You guys could be looked at to be brought into a larger.
I wouldn't be surprised
group,
that there's going to be a lot of M&A happening here.
Yeah.
I think in the next couple of years, for several reasons. But I haven't gotten an offer, and if anything, I'd probably be more of the buying mode than selling mode.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's really
we don't want anything to happen to Lakefront.
What's that?
Don't want anything to happen to Lakefront.
No.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, it is a Milwaukee staple, and I wanted to keep that way.
Sure.
And so we go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what was the first beer you guys were making that you actually put out and produced and, were in those kegs?
We actually, when I was homebrewing, I tried to imitate Pilsner Urquell, which led to the Klisch Pilsner. And my brother tried to imitate Anchor Steam out of California, and he made River West Stein. And those were the two beers that we came out to, and those were the two beers.
Yeah.
Back in those days, more brewers were imitators and innovators, and so you sat there and you try to come up with something you thought that was really good and try to imitate it.
And well, how much were you guys producing at that time when you were just starting out?
Well, the first month of the year, I mean, we started in December, so it was like 10 barrels that year. The next year was like 70 barrels. The next year it was 170 barrels. The next year was 300 barrels. Then went to 500, 700, and 1,000, and just kept on going up a little bit every year after that until last year it was 45,000, somewhere around there.
That was my next question. So where are we at today? 45,000.
Yeah, 45,000.
Nice. You built your own bottling machine. So where does that where does that come into play in the scheme of things here? You were acquiring equipment, but at some point you're just like, were you canning to begin with, or were you
no,
hand
there wasn't any
bottling,
cans. It was hard even to get bottles. No way you could get cans back then. No one would ever sell you cans unless you had truckloads you wanted to bring in
buy
and
like
store
millions
somewhere.
of them.
And back then, everybody, the can was actually looked at as a lower quality product, and it probably was. The liners have been significantly improved on them since then. But the space we had was very small. It was about 2,500 square feet. We didn't have a dock at our old place. It had like a front door and a back door, and you just brought everything in and out on a dolly. And so I couldn't really fit a bottling machine in it. And so I thought, well, I'll just build a one-headed filler. I still have it over in our warehouse, but you could do about a bottle a minute. And so that was kind of our tap room in a way. You could sit there and say, well, I'll put a bottle in, and then we ended up selling them loose. We didn't have a six-packs. But that was craft beer back in the early 90s.
Yeah. A bottle a minute. Now,
that was one bottle a minute, but I figured we sold it for $1 a piece, I remember.
Wow.
And the stores are going there. And we figured, well, you're making 60 bottles an hour. You're making $60, and you only probably have $20 in cost. So that's a pretty good,
Yeah.
And that's the way we looked at it, and it paid the bills.
So what do your fillers do now? How many a minute?
We go about 220 bottles a minute when it really cranks.
It's quite a jump.
Yeah, a little bit.
Wow.
There you go.
And all the brewing is done here.
Yes.
On site. You don't have. You've got a warehouse, obviously.
We take the beer off site to store there.
Yeah.
That warehouse is actually larger in this building.
Is it?
But
okay.
In square footage. But you have to have about a square foot per barrel when you build a brewery. So we have about 45,000 square feet.
Okay.
That is about what you have, and that's what you look at.
The name Lakefront Brewery, because I want to talk about this building a little bit, but going back to when you started, you had your first building.
Yes.
Does that have anything to do with where the name Lakefront Brewery started with, or is it just because Milwaukee is a lakefront city?
Mostly because Milwaukee has a lakefront city.
Yeah.
Lakefront meant water, which goes into beer. Milwaukee, when you say at the lakefront, we're the only town that really calls the lakefront instead of a waterfront or oceanfront. So we thought the name was indigenous to Milwaukee, and in reality it was probably a little bit too deep for people to gather. And we probably should have called it a different name, but it stuck. And when I moved down here, I thought, should I change it to Riverfront? But we moved down here, and so now you get comments like, oh, they don't know what body of water they're on, and things of that sort. But everybody still knows it's lakefront, and everybody comes down here. They appreciate the water, and technically we're Lake Michigan level here, on the river. So we're still kind of like the lakefront.
Yeah, that's true.
We're international boundary.
Right out back here,
we actually get the Coast Guard coming up and down.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, just literally right outside the windows here, there is the river is. So we're actually on lakefront or Lake Michigan level here. So
yes.
Now this building, how did this building come about? I know the story, but what did this building used to be? You can tell everybody.
It used to be a power plant, and it was a power plant for most of its early life. And then the electric company ran their underground division out of here, repaired the streetcars here. And eventually they sold it in the 60s to the city of Milwaukee for their forestry department. And we ended up buying it from the city of Milwaukee. We got kind of lucky in that there's an apartment complex next door, and the city was helping finance that to become a apartment complex to rejuvenate the neighborhood. And they also were putting in a $10 million street in the front, so they were looking at people to come on down. But back when we bought it 20 years ago, it was not the best neighborhood, and so the city was looking for somebody to come down here to be in this building. And if we would not have moved in, the city would have had to have torn it down. And it's a massive structure. You go downstairs, they got 5 feet, thick concrete pillars down there to support the old electrical generators that were here when it was a power plant. So it would not have been an easy thing to tear it. It would have been a big, hard part. And so anyway, the city offered us a very good price, almost nothing for it. But back then, there was a lot of money to put in to fix it up. But we're still fixing the building up today.
Really?
After 20 years of doing this improvement and that improvement. So that's one thing about a historical building, is that it continues to be updated.
It's a great-looking building. I mean, first time we came here, I was like, this place is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the building's cool. You got this structure outside that's very industrial looking. I mentioned some roads and the river being out back. It's just a really, really neat setting.
Yeah,
to come down
it is. It is about as Milwaukee can be. You got an old industrial building right on the river, a Cream City brick building, got a brewery here. We do a Friday night fish fry, right next to a big industrial, massive bridge right next to it, on the Riverwalk. Everything that Milwaukee kind of, stands for is here. So, so it's fun. One of the biggest compliments I get is people saying, I had a friend in from out of town. We didn't know what to do, and we came down to your place.
Yeah.
To show them, this represents the town, and so that means a lot to me.
Yeah, and we'll definitely go outside and get some shots of the building and the bridge that's out there and the river and everything afterwards, so you guys can all see what we're talking about here. I'm looking at your website right now, and you've got a section on about Lakefront, about historical preservation. And there's some talking here about the lights that are out front, and it looks like there's a connection here to the Milwaukee Brewers baseball team.
With the chalet.
Yeah, with
we have the chalet and the lights here, so that's kind of things I thought was nice amenities I brought in. The lights, especially that we see up here, that we have. Those are built in 1917.
Oh, wow.
I believe, and that's when.
Tour time!
All right,
tour time! Everybody, get your tour going.
get going on tour. It's awesome.
But I know Frank Lloyd Wright was in town at that time. He lived here, but I have nothing to tie it to him. But they were taken out of the Plankington Hotel. I spent a bunch of money renovating or refurbishing them, and that's what I got. They fit the perfect building perfectly, from the same age of the building, and they work good. And then I was able to acquire Bernie Brewer Chalet when they tore down County Stadium, and got the giant beer mug, and that's in here. So that was
and that's
a lot of pictures taken in front of it.
Right behind us.
Right behind us, yeah. Over there.
Very cool.
Now tell us about the tours. We love the tours, and
it's the best tour. It's the best brewery tour. We've been on a bunch of brewery tours.
Yeah.
It's the best one.
It's a mix of informative, but still fun. There's some brewery tours you go on and they're just like you said, it's the science class. And you're just like, okay, come on, let's get on with it.
Yeah.
It keeps you entertained every time you do it. So.
Yeah, there's things I tell the tour guides not to say. I don't tell them anything what to say, basically. I can't have them come in here and bash another team sports team, or tell something else, or talk politics, or use dirty words, or anything on that sort. I tell them they can't do, or shouldn't be doing. I know they still probably do, but but otherwise, it's about having fun, and they're all, as you can hear, very lively and energetic. And I do hire theater people and comics to come in and do the tours. It's amazing to me they don't steal any lines a lot of times from other tour guides. It's kind of the rule, even though I do when I do tours. But but I'm boss. But anyway, and so everything's about having fun. There's no videos here either. I didn't ever understood this video thing where you got to go, and you never go to a comedy club and see a comic, showing a video.
Yeah.
And so it's all about the person, about being entertained, about being interactive, and that's what people want. We get them singing at part of the tour, and it's amazing the feeling that people have when you have some of the minimalist things you can do, and it's not anything high tech, but everybody just loves coming down.
I like the little bar halfway through to refill.
Oh yeah,
that's the best part.
Yeah, the drinking along the tour is important, and you guys do it right here.
Yeah, I always find the attention span of people is directly proportional to how much beer they have in a glass, and so you fill them up halfway along the line, it gets a little more jolly too, and.
Yeah,
the anxiety goes up as the beer goes down. That's what it is. It's like, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap.
No, that's great.
Those tour guides, do they do other stuff within the brewery, or is that their sole job? Or some of them?
Well, we have them pour beer, and we're in the gift shop, so there's like a rotation.
Yeah,
that goes on, and but no, mostly it's just tour operations. They got to clean and still mop at the end, like everybody else. They're not. Or they help set things up in the morning.
They're not like the talent that just leaves when
they're just talent just doesn't leave.
They help take care of the brewery.
They got to take care of the brewery too.
Yeah, that's good.
Which is good, but then they seem happy to. I mean, it's a big. I was amazed. I don't know how I ever did it, or how, they probably did it themselves. But they all kind of are like a big family, and they want to stay together, and they all want to have beer at the end of the day, night together, and
sure.
And so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Now, what beers right now are hot for you guys? Like, what is your top sellers? Is it an old, trusted one you've had for a while, or is there a new one that's really coming on strong right now?
Well, the one what they say has the most momentum would be the hazy IPA that we have right now.
Yeah.
Regular IPA is still doing well, and River West still up in sales right here. So those are doing good. I know Eastside Dark's done well this year too in sales. But those are hoppy. But it's like beer is becoming more of a fashion a lot of times, where you see certain styles, but then it's always been that way. You always got the style that's hot, people want to drink it, and hazies and milkshakes and things like that are the in thing right now.
Yeah, so that leads to actually a question we got from somebody from Facebook.
Okay,
Brent. He wanted to know. How do you keep up with the changing trends? When they're always changing, do you...
Well, you got to go out and drink a lot of beer. And
done. All right, we're good.
And so you go out there, but
job.
there's various methods besides, one, you just obviously do that. You go out and drink, or you see where the crowd is. I mean, literally simple things like you go to the Great American Beer Festival or any beer festival you go to, where's the line? What are they drinking at the line? So you see that. You get all the Nielsen reports, and you get other reports of the scan data out from the supermarkets, and you can tell which beers are hot and which ones aren't, and so they can tell where the trend is going. And so it's those are different things you do pay close attention to, but also even for us, we'll do a lot of test batches here, and we'll put it on tap, and then we count how many kegs at the end of the day we went through. Right. And, it's pretty simple stuff, but then it's amazing how many people don't even do that.
Yeah.
And different styles, and we kind of try to look at it. But those are different things you look at, what you feel could be a good trend.
Now, Brent also wanted to know how long until you can get your beer in California.
Well, we do have two distributors there, one in San Francisco, one in L.A., but they mostly carry the New Grist. Right now we have Harbor, I think,
which
down
is
by
the sour.
New
Grist is the sour.
New Grist is the gluten-free.
It's gluten-free. We also have a sour New Grist.
Oh, it's the Goza.
The Goza, and that's also gluten-free. Yeah. So we got two of them. But Mussamer is the other one in San Francisco that carries some of our product.
So Brent's in San Francisco. You should be able to find it.
Oh, yeah.
You just not looking hard
some
enough.
Of this then.
Has there ever
Brent,
been
beer hunt, man. Beer hunt.
Yeah,
come on.
Look, Brent. Has there ever been a trend where you're just like, no, we don't want to do it, or you didn't think it really fit with Lakefront very well to do that kind of beer, or?
Trying to think. We've done a lot of different ones here that we've totally rejected. that we have, and I'd hate to sit there and say one, and we didn't go with it. But I mean, I know we never did like a white IPA. That was one trend that came along. I'm spacing out here and other things that.
Well, what
that
about
happen.
barrel aging?
We do a lot of barrel aging. We just bottled up some barrel aged stuff today, and
Nice.
Yeah, I just had one of the barrel aged Doppelbocks at a beer fest.
That's right. I remember you said
we
that.
had
was
that,
delicious.
and we do the Black Friday. That's a popular barrel aged product. I think that's a very high quality beer that we've done. So barrel aging I think is a very much an art. I guess the ones you look at are more gimmicky than arty, or artsful. And so I mean, to me, if you have a great barrel aged beer, it's one of the most delectable things you can possibly have, and
You can usually tell when someone is skilled in barrel aging versus someone who's just, I gotta get a barrel aged beer out there and just throw it on the shelf, because you guys do have some very, very good barrel aged beers. Some other breweries in the Wisconsin area, North Chicago area, that have some great barrel aged beers, and you can tell that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, you can
and
taste a
they
little
do
bit
it
of the
right.
barrel in there. You can taste a little bit of the spirit in there, and the malt and the hops. You can taste all the different ingredients. To me, plus the barrel, it's a sign of a good barrel aged beer.
Yeah, and we went off earlier. Was it earlier this year or last year? Anyway, I don't remember. Yeah. Our idea was we were going to take this podcast in a barrel aged direction, where all we were drinking was barrel aged beers.
That's all we wanted to drink at the
That's
time.
all we wanted to drink at the time. So we're
Yeah.
like, all right, the
That'll
podcast
work.
is going to be all about barrel aged beers, and we loved it for a while. And we still love barrel aged beers, but we got to the point where we're like, okay.
I need something else at
Well,
this
that's-
point.
So shall I go get one? Is that what you want? We can split it here. And
Hey, I'm totally fine with that.
So,
go ahead.
No, you, sir. You.
I was going to go with the beers that were.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about the beer styles, and you guys do. Do you guys do any sort of? I know you do. I'm kind of leading you into a question here. You do some innovative style beers by asking employees for ideas and recipes. Is that the way that works? You've got the My Turn series.
yes,
And it's very innovative, I think. I mean, you've got some, like My Turn Kristen is probably one of the strangest beers I've ever had.
Which one was that?
It's
That
like
was
a bacon maple, or
yeah. She's our head chef, and
Yeah.
she likes breakfast, so she wanted something that tastes like bacon. So it was like a malty smoked beer, and it was like a pancake or smoky.
yeah.
Smoking, yeah. It's like it was like breakfast.
I mean, I saw bacon on the bottle, and I'm like, I got to get that.
Gotta have
So
bacon.
I got it. I
So
drank it. I liked
When you
it.
brewed that one with the bacon, are you using bacon grease, bacon bits? Like, what do you?
well, we just buy smoked malt, and then you get you have it more on the sweeter side than the hoppier side, and it worked out well.
Yeah.
It was a different style of beer. It's like you say, it is innovative. It's not too many people have done one of those or anything similar to that. But to me, it was still a great beer. It won several awards.
Oh, really? I know that.
Yeah, I mean, we enter it in a lot of smoked beer categories.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the things like LA County Fair or the United States Beer Tasting Championship and things like that, where you enter it in, and I think we've gotten some awards, or some of them. I'm not sure which one it was, but there's several of those that are out there that you can enter, and we usually do that with the My Turns to see if we can get an award for the employee.
Now, has there ever been a My Turn that stuck around and
No.
made it to the regular rotation, or no?
No, we've thought about possibly coming out with a variety, like 12-pack, where you put 3 or 4 of them in,
Yeah.
and we could have like online voting of pick your favorite My Turn.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we first started this, I saw a lot of one-off series from different breweries, and I thought they all had kind of the same personality. And I thought, how do you prevent, because I can understand, there's one brewer picking all the beers. He likes
Right.
certain things, and how do you prevent that from occurring? And I thought, well, let every employee brew their own style of beer, and you would probably get a large cross-section of stuff out there, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And you have one beer does not match the next one at all.
No.
You wouldn't think it's from the same brewery. that's come along. But yeah, there's been some ones that have not sold as well, and other ones have sold real well, and it's been great.
So when you do the My Turn series, is it like the employee brings the idea to you, or whoever the idea gets brought to? Is it like, okay, if that's your idea, we're gonna find a way to do it, or is it a little bit of
everybody puts their idea in?
Yeah, do we
one
get a
gets
little bit
picked,
of ideas flowing back and forth here to figure this
it's usually
out?
what happens is the employee goes to the head brewer and says, "This is what I want to do. If there's any industry examples, and I want to try to make something like this," and then also we got the marketing department, and it probably, if anything, we've erred on the fact of being too different compared to, let's try toning it down a little bit.
Right.
Because I think we've had like 3 different smoke beers, and so that's not something that's normally that big of a seller out there. But they've done, we still were able to sell it well and go on out, and they were all tasty. They were all, almost every smoke beer we had won an award of something. But there is like large variety. We just had Yanni, that was out. That was the Mexican hot chocolate beer with pepper, which is another different one that you have. But there are some huge fans of that beer out there compared to other people who didn't quite get it. But but that was very tight. I liked it. I loved it.
What are some of the ideas that didn't go over very well? Didn't sell very well?
Well, anything like you can just like the Mexican hot chocolate or the smoke beers or things a little more exotic. Usually you don't find as much of a sales for, and then you have other ones that are a little more mainstream, or like the chocolate beer we had. That was like a huge seller for Latif.
Yeah.
Or a lot of buzz about it, or bigger, bolder beers typically are the with malt and hops are usually the more fan favorites.
When a My Turn beer comes out, you've got My Turn Chuck on draft right
liquor.
now. I want to try that. How long does it stay on draft here? I mean, it goes in the bottles. You can buy it, right?
Yeah.
But how long do they typically stay on tap?
I want to stay on tap. Usually the My Turns go for a 3-month period of time. I want at least 2 months here on tap, depending on how we do. And we have. I think the Chuck is still on tap, but that's also made with what do you want to call it? With the malt is heirloom barley. If you're familiar with heirloom barley, it's probably a new thing. But 100, 200 years ago, there was only like 3 different styles of barley. Then everybody discovered crossbreeding, and then what they've done, and so they've taken that barley, and it was all basically bred for disease resistant and growing, but was never bred for flavor or taste. And so when you go back to an heirloom barley, it's basically the original barley. And I've had people drink this beer without even telling them about that. And I say, this tastes like something I used to drink with my dad back in the 60s. Back before they really started to modify or breed the barley. And they could actually even taste that flavor in it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So now where do you get where are your ingredients sourced from? Is it, you try to stay within Wisconsin for a lot of it, or do you?
No, most we do buy hops now and then from Wisconsin farmers. We used to have the Wisconsinite, which we also have Wisconsin grain growing here. It is a kind of a difficult, niche-y thing to do. Most of it, most of the barley, almost all of our barley comes from the plains or Canada. Hops mostly come from Pacific Northwest. We do buy European hops, like the East Side Dark would have European hops in it. A lot of our specialty malts or Dingaman that comes from Belgium, or Weirmann that comes from Germany. So we do have a lot of specialty malts, some from Breese up in Chilton, Wisconsin. So we have those, different suppliers we deal with. Plus all the base malt comes from town here, Malt Europe. So I guess you could say a good portion of it is Milwaukee product that goes in there with the Malt Europe malt.
Now I do have to throw in Dan, our buddy Dan in Texas.
Dallas Dan.
The only question he had is when can he get it in Texas, but he also said that he's a huge East Side Dark fan. He wants me to bring some of that next time I go see him. But
I just put some on my boat this weekend. That East Side Dark is really good.
It's our most award-winning beer.
Really?
I mean, it's won a European Beer Star gold medal out in Germany, and that's going against the other Schwartz and Dunkels out there. And so to me, it's amazing when you get German brewmasters picking your beer over all of theirs.
Right.
In
Yeah.
a blind tasting. That was
Wow.
very nice.
So now, where all do you distribute?
We're in about 30 different states, mostly because of our gluten-free new grist. That was another innovation we did, coming up with the first gluten-free beer in the country. But and so we got a good distribution network. Most of the Great Lakes states we distribute to, then a lot of the other larger states. I mean, unfortunately, a place like Texas, we can't get in. With the proliferation of breweries around the country, it's getting harder and harder to distribute farther and farther.
Why can't you get into Texas? Or if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But what's
can.
blocking you from getting into Texas?
Just finding a distributor who wants our product.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we find some, but they're not really what you call, guys you want. They're not like the Miller Coors EB distributor, where you feel they're going to just bring it in and maybe just sit on it or not watch it closely. To me, I'm still concerned about quality, making sure the product's turned. If it sits on the shelf over 6 months, are they going to take it off the shelf? Aren't they going to take it off? And when you got, one of either the Miller Coors or Bud distributors, they're pretty good usually about doing that or rotating the beer, watching the quality. And so those are concerns I have. You always have some jobber out there that says, yeah, give it to me and we'll put it out.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. I don't think they'd ever take it off the shelf if it got long or concerned about the quality or store it in a warm place. And
I think those concerns are quite valid because we know of some beers from upper Midwest breweries that can be found in Texas that are quite old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so why do you go there?
Is
that what you really you want to export to Texas to try to sell old beer? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
I guess that's what I look at when I go there.
Yeah. Do you want to take a quick break for a refill, or do you want to just keep on going?
Is that your way of saying you want more beer?
Well, he said something about going to get some barrel-aged beer.
I can get some barrel age if you want. I got one I just brought up on here. Otherwise, I don't know if you want to drink a warm Black Friday. I can bring that out too. But
I don't have any problem with warm.
I have no problem with warm beer at all.
You see what I can have. I can get something else
All
to
right.
wash it down with.
Awesome.
I'm not going to.
Probably best to start with this one first.
Okay.
This is aged in brandy barrels.
Is it started? Mm-hmm. Okay.
You got rolling here?
Oh, yeah, we're rolling.
We're rolling.
Okay. It's our Imperial Pumpkin. I think it's about 13% or so.
Jake would be proud.
Jake would be
13%.
proud.
Yeah, Jake
Very
would be
proud. This is kind of cool. Little beer tasting in the middle here.
Right, exactly.
All right.
So
She's lurking in the back. Look at her. I got that on camera. You lurking, so it's right.
again, this is
did.
pumpkin imperial ale.
Yeah. Imperial, yeah, so it's aged in brandy barrels.
Oh.
A lot of beers that are not brandy, they're bourbon. Both are good.
Yep.
Both have a different way of to me, the brandy is better because it's not like as big of a beer. It works. This is spice beer. Spices and brandy, I think, work well together. Big malty beer.
You can smell the brandy right away. The pumpkin and the brandy
yeah.
really comes through in this.
I normally do not like pumpkin beers, but this is a really good pumpkin beer.
Yeah, it's a different type of different type of
definitely.
pumpkin.
That's really good.
So,
that is
anyway,
delicious.
It is really good.
yeah, we selling it. We don't want to get too much into the summer, and have to buy. It's kind of a ordeal to get all the beer out of the barrels and put it in the tank and make sure everything's correct, and then bottle it up. So we try bottling a little bit earlier because it is good. We do have on the back of these the cellar certified. You see it's one thing the Wisconsin Brewers Guild we're part of is trying to push for all Wisconsin breweries.
So there's like an hourglass.
Yeah, Henry from Mobcraft came up with the logo on that. I worked with him, but it's something to tell people, that you should go and this beer can be aged, because certain beers can be aged and certain beers cannot be aged, and so we put that symbol on.
That's a good idea.
I just want to try to do that. We're trying to promote that, to look for
for brews that are.
Yeah, you can pull up there if you want. Walk up there and show it. That's a really good idea. One of the guys on YouTube we did an interview with, he has a pretty big cellar going, and
Okay.
that's what he was saying. A lot of times he had a hard time telling.
Yeah, you'll see. Maybe you can see
Yeah,
it
you
better
got
on
it.
the
You did.
Black Friday here too. They got the cellar. So we're trying to get breweries. I mean, we have the logo, but it's something any brewery in the United States or world can use. It's not like our own thing.
Right.
So it's just try to promote beers that can be barrel aged.
Yeah. That's cool.
Because people, I mean, to me, it's important because when you see that, then you can buy 3 or 4 of them or something like that, and then have them, one year, 2 years down the road, 3
Yep.
years down the road, and whatever.
That's
So,
totally new to me. Did you know about that?
No, that's the first time I've seen it.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
I've not seen that before. So.
Yeah, it's something we have to get the word out on, and so I want to make sure that's why we did that, and to have that because I mean the first time we did the Black Friday, it was. How do you say it? Was a double IPA, and people still right now are.
She's like lurking back there. She's so funny.
People right now are still saving that bottle, and you don't want to
yeah.
save a double IPA or Black Imperial double IPA when they're for years, and so the hop flavor goes down and it's not as good. So we decided to change that and have it so anytime you buy this big barrel aged beer that you're going to want to make sure people know they should be they can save it, or when you can save it, not save it.
So this is Black Friday, right?
Yeah, this
Imperial
is
Stout?
last year's. Yeah, 2018 is what we're drinking right now.
Oh.
So hopefully,
Oh my God,
That's really good.
we can smell the barrels. We can smell some of the.
That is
taste
delicious.
The wood in there, a little bit of the vanilla in there.
yeah, I definitely get vanilla, and it's got a very nice woody flavor to it.
Yeah,
Not,
to
but
me.
not like overly, it's not like a burnt wood taste.
No.
It's just a good
I agree with you.
wood flavor.
Now, do you release these on Black Friday?
Yeah. So obviously, we've been doing this since 2013. And so we do that, every year here, and so it's a big thing. And this year we're going to have a couple other brands or different ones. Last year we came out with the Special Reserve. When you're ready, let me know. I can open that one. I'm not sure if you got more questions you want to go over first before opening the next one or not, or you want to do that one now.
Well, I just had a question. It totally just left my mind.
Oh, just drink.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
That's a
good answer.
When you release the Black Friday beers, are you releasing? Are they available through, your local store?
No,
or
that's only here.
You
It's
can
only
only
here.
get it here.
They're only here, and so we have people lining up like 12 hours before we open the doors, and
See, I can't.
I know.
I just
Don't get
can't
in
bring
lines.
myself
Go
to do
in
it.
lines.
But the reason, and this actually just kind of backs this up, the reason I don't go wait in line for beer, because I know at some point, like right now,
you still have it.
I'm getting
It's
it.
gonna
getting
come
it.
around.
You didn't have to
some
wait in
point-
line for this one, I
At
guess.
some point, it'll come around and I'll enjoy
Well,
it.
you could be like Jake. There's he's usually part of our show, but he's not here. Jake stood in line for an hour
Yeah.
and missed CBS by one.
Oh.
It's
Yeah, they had 12 bottles and he was 13th
13,
in line.
so he couldn't get
But
it.
the rumor, I guess there was like they might have one more. Maybe somebody would jump out of line. He was hoping to
Yeah.
get it. And
Well, let's talk about
CBS is not as
not as good as it used to be.
not as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
We're not as big of CBS fans as we once were, but
So now the beer industry, where do it's changed a lot in your time.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, it's grown a lot over. What has been the biggest surprise to you over the past few years of what's happened with the industry?
From the early years, the biggest surprises was the fact that you actually started having manufacturers and people catering to the craft industry. Before, you used to have to plead for bottles, plead for getting your labels made. We found the printer companies, you would, the major companies that printed for the larger brewers wouldn't print for you, or they thought you're too small. So that change was positive. Also, I never thought that I mentioned it before about how brewers went from imitators to innovators, and that happened, like going to say the late '90s, where all of a sudden, like, everything was, you could do anything you wanted.
Yeah. And
you didn't have to imitate anymore. And it didn't have to all of a sudden say you're making some certain style of beer from Europe. No, you're making an American beer.
Right.
And that was good. And as it comes along, the evolution of different styles, the amount of beers, and the fact that we continue to grow as an industry with the amount of breweries. I would, thinking like Milwaukee's got 30 something right now, and it's just I'm just floored by that, and it's a good thing. We're the beer city,
yeah.
And Brew City, that's what we're known for, and it's great that we're having this renaissance again.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you see those other brewers not as like a competition that you have to try to put out of business, but you see them more as just like a comrade in the same industry, and you guys work together and stuff?
I feel that's the proper way, when you have people coming up and saying, we help motivate the fact that they could do it, and it's good. Yeah. And you look at the barrelage that they're really putting out, and compared to what all the beers drank in town here, and it is very small. And so, to me, if you use them, if you're not doing well as an excuse saying, well, they're taking our market share, you're basically, there's something else going on. There's so much beer out there that's drank. Your job, that's the way it was back in the early 90s, late 80s when we started out. We had to convince people that are drinking Bud and Miller to drink our stuff. And to me, that's still what we should be doing today.
Yeah.
From the hundreds of thousands or millions of barrels that are drunk in town here, that's the drinker you're still going after. It's still this education process that's going on. Once you get people educated, it's hard to go back to drinking one product all the time, or once you understand the flavor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting the innovation that's in the craft industry now with the different styles of beers. But you've mentioned a couple times imitating, and one of my missions in the last year or so has been trying to find a Pilsner or a lager from a craft brewer that I could purchase at a decent enough price to justify keeping my refrigerator over like a Miller Lite. So, like if I'm looking for a Pilsner that's on par, that's as good a quality every single time.
Consistent, you can
consistency,
find it.
And I can find it as a Miller Lite or Budweiser for a lager, or, whatever the case may be. I've been looking for something that I can find that has a decent enough price point and consistency and taste. You think that's something that breweries are going for? I know you guys have a Pils, and you've got a Lakefront Lager.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's something that craft brewers are starting to go after a little bit more? I know the innovation is still there, and that's going to stay. But
the biggest concern I'd probably have in the industry right now is nothing with the amount of people coming in. It's more price. Because everybody has basically built their brewery at $8.99 6-pack, and I'm seeing some of the larger breweries or some other breweries that are all of a sudden coming out with a 15-pack at the same price as a 12-pack, and they're discounting them, and they're going that way. And with the amount of breweries coming up, people are looking for volume, they're looking for sales, and it is, a concern. There's, I give my hats off to like New Glarus, who has Spotted Cow, which is the lighter style beer, and they're still getting the $8.99 a 6-pack out there in the stores. And so they've done, the best probably of any brewery, obviously in the state, for creating this and keeping the prices high. And but then I just see other ones coming along that are that the price might be driven down, and I guess that's it'd be hard to see everybody trying to get in a price war.
Now, do you see that more as a concern for the brewery, or concern that consumers will become tired of paying that price when you can go buy, double the cans of Miller Lite for the same price or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, it's just the concern that it's going to be harder economically for all the breweries, and I'm just afraid that when that starts happening and you're getting into that type of a contest, so to speak, who can produce a highest quality beer at a cheaper price and whatever, that's when things might cause problems for a lot of breweries.
Yeah. Now,
should I try this one?
Absolutely. Yeah,
for sure.
Now, talking about breweries in the area, Jamie on Twitter had asked, he wanted to know about brewery feuds. He said he's he overheard 2 Wisconsin breweries going back and forth about stealing ideas and recipes, but he wanted to know how often that type of stuff happens in the industry.
Well, I know I haven't been in a feud. I don't think I've been in a feud with anybody, or it's not
No,
me.
you're aware
I'm
of.
sure that's happened. I mean, you got 160 or whatever it is in the state right now. You could imagine some personalities wouldn't match, but compared to other industries, or I mean, you look in the service industry between bars or restaurants, you always have one. You might hear talking about another one, but I really don't hear that many bad things being said.
Yeah.
You got the guild, they go to guild meetings, you go to the festivals, everybody drinks together, everybody does well. And I'm sure it probably happens, but it's not that much. And stealing recipes, that's hard. It's pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how much time I got. There was a brewery in Port Washington, Wisconsin. This goes way back, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, called Mile Rock.
Okay.
And the guy that started was the nephew of the guy that started New Belgium. And New Belgium had this 15-barrel system they started with, and they actually sold him that system. And they gave him the recipe for Fat Tire.
Really?
And so he went up there and he made, basically in the same brew house, Fat Tire. The same ingredients.
Right here in Port Washington.
Right in Port Washington. and nobody bought it.
Really?
It was... you sit there and you think the recipe's it.
Yeah,
And
it's the same beer.
It was the same beer. And they would put out advertising. Yeah, we got our system from
they'd
New
even advertise
Belgium.
it too.
We got the same recipe, wink, wink. That's their famous beer. And nobody really seemed to care.
Wow.
So
That's pretty funny.
it isn't always the recipe. It's the person behind it. It's the person brewing it.
Sure.
So
Now, where do you see the future of craft beer? What do you see coming up? When you're looking ahead and planning out for 5 years or 10 years. I mean, where do you see craft beer going? Or where would you like to see it going?
Well, I'd like to see. Well, I've said it for several years that I'm thinking it's going to go at least to 10,000 beer breweries. We're about 7,000 right now. I don't think it's going to stop.
We just had the
Brewers Association.
Association on last week, and we're at 7,500.
7,500 now. Okay. So I wouldn't be surprised it gets to 10, maybe even more, 12,000 that we currently are going to have. And I would say any town or area of 20,000 people can support a brewery or tap room out there. So this proliferation is going to occur whether people want it or not. People are going to open, they're going to be creative, they're going to come up with different ideas. I see, beer being very trendy, where right now the milkshakes, the hazies, very popular, coming out to go to your tap room for. But that may not be I don't see that being the beer in 5 years from now.
Yeah.
It'll be a different style of beer that'll be hot.
It's
trendy.
interesting what keeps me coming back to a brewery or a tap room is what they're known for. And if they have something special on tap, like a milkshake or a hazy or whatever, or a brewed IPA, whatever the new trend happens to be, of course I'm going to try it. But if I know I'm going to keep going back to that brewery, like we keep coming back to Lakefront, and we know you're going to have good beer, every single time. And the stuff that's new and trendy, it'll come and go. But it's the brewery itself that keeps you coming back.
What I'm looking at, or what I see, which encourages me in a way, is that a lot more people, or the hottest thing right now is like Mexican beer. And the hardest thing to get is to get the people to go from the Budweiser Miller to paying the $8.99 a six-pack. And once they do that, then all of a sudden they get a little extra beer, and then they understand the extra flavor in there or different tastes. And then they're used to paying that price. Well, then they'll try some more flavor, and they'll keep on going. By continuing to see this, people growing in higher price, which I think is good. I always look at beer as a luxury for the common man. I mean, when you can go on out and spend, maybe even like a $12.99 a six-pack and get a world-class product. I mean, if you want a world-class wine, you're spending $100, $50, something way up there. But, you look at the beers out there for $12.99, even up to $15.99, or even like these bottles here that go for $20 a piece. Anybody out there who loves beer can afford this, or at least make themselves a treat to get this style of beer.
They'll find a way.
They'll find a way. And so to me, it's a luxury for the common man. And it's something that everybody out there in the world can just talk about and enjoy and sit there and say, oh gosh, and talk about the different hop flavors and getting them interested without having to go to some restaurant and spending $100, on some meal, or understanding this. This is something that's top of the line in the world. And you're getting a world-class product for that price. I think it's a very good deal.
Yep.
Now, what style do you think will be here 5 years from now? Like the brewed IPAs or the milkshakes or the hazies. You think any of those will still be around in 5 years?
Hazy could be. I'm not sure about the brewed milkshake. I think regular IPAs are going to continue to go.
Yeah.
They're more drinkable, I think, today compared to several years ago. It's like, it used to be like a hot chili contest with hops. How much hops can you drink and
how bitter
many
can you
IBUs
get it?
you want. You don't hear
exactly.
this IBU thing anymore going on where, I drank this 90 IBU beer. I got 90 IBUs in this thing.
Yep, exactly.
Well, since you brought it up,
you're gonna. Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about IBUs.
Jake will be happy about this
because one of our other guy that podcasts with us, Jake. I want to say doesn't believe in IBUs or just doesn't think.
He's IBU atheist.
He's IBU atheist.
Well,
I mean, do you guys figure the IBU rating so that the consumer can know?
Yeah, we
really
do,
feel like
but
there's
it's kind of
something
like
behind
calculating octane and gasoline. Everybody's got a different formulation for it.
Every
Right.
brewery's
Yeah.
got their own way of figuring out what the rating
I mean,
is.
it's like, what is it? I don't know. It's something like 90 IBUs or 80 IBUs is like the maximum that you possibly can put in beer. And there's people out there saying I got 120. And you can tell what they're doing. They count the when they put hops in the beer and the dry hopping. So you don't get an IBU from dry hop beer. You can't count that hop addition from the formula. It has to be in the kettle, has to be heated up. There's a chemical reaction that occurs that takes it from the alpha acid to the to that bittering compound. And so if you're not boiling it, you can't count it. You put it in the whirlpool, you can't count it. But a lot of these brewers are, and that's where they're getting these really super high IBUs. And
well,
you just don't taste the difference.
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at, like a Bell's Two Hearted Ale, which is, I believe, right around 100 IBUs. It's a pretty bitter beer, but then you drink a Pliny the Elder, which is also 100, and Pliny is so much more drinkable.
Well, yeah, they have a lot of the flavor of the hop. That's one of the big innovations that's occurred, in the last 10, 15 years, where learning how to use the hop flavor instead of the hop bitterness. And there's so many great flavors in hops, and so you get that piney, you get the fruity, you get the grapefruit, you get the other flavors, and those are the great flavors that people just crave and look for, and to me that makes it interesting in there, and that's the important part of these IPAs.
So don't ever not drink a beer because of the IBU rating.
Well, my wife for years.
It just doesn't make any sense.
If it was over 70 IBU on the bottle, she'd be like, I'm not drinking. That's too bitter for me.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't until I set her down and gave her a 70 and a 90, and the 90 was not nearly as bitter as the 70 that she's like, oh, wait a minute. And I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, it's, you know, so.
Yeah, it's strange out there, but to me it's more about the flavor of the hops instead
Exactly.
of bitterness.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like chili peppers or whatever you want to talk. You know, you have a certain amount of flavor that goes with it, then a certain amount of things that it's just kind of silly after a certain period of time that you actually want to eat something that hot or
Yeah.
whatever.
So we'll start to wrap up here. So the key to a good brewery.
Key to the good brewery. To me, it's kind of simple. Quality lets you play the game.
Okay.
You have to have quality. You have to have all the product out there. I can never look at my sales guys in my eye and say, "Oh, we got this batch. It's kind of bad, but I'm sure you can go out and sell it." You know, or you know, this one was really kind of a wild beer, but you know, we should go out there and discount this thing. You know, and you've got to get people drinking the product and you know, having a confidence that anytime they pick it off the shelf, they're going to be getting you know, a quality product. And then you know, good brewery after that is just being part of the community, being part of the brewer community, being innovative. You look at any band out there that plays music, and you know, a lot of them are one-hit wonders, but then there's other ones that kind of go with the times and understand the different flow with it, and that's what you got to be with the brewery too. You have to understand, you know, what is important, what's the consumer wanting. But you know, quality starts with, and then after that, it's, you know, just bringing what, you know, what goes. You know, to me, I always use the music analogy, but you know, you don't want to have, you don't want to sit there and just try to, you know, be a cover band or try to play everybody else's hits. You got to play your own hits. You got to come up with your own stuff, and you got to come up with your own taste and flavor that you have. And once you do that, you know, I mean, people understand what you're going about. They'll continue to love you and to buy your product.
Now, if you were to start a brewery today, you know, you're just now starting to get into brewing, you know, number one, would you start a brewery in today's craft beer market? Would you go in now? And two, what would you say to somebody who is starting a brewery now? What would be like your top 2 tips for them that they need to focus on starting a brewery now?
Well, first thing, I remember when I started back in '87, and everybody said, "Well, you can't start a brewery these days." I mean, this has been going on for 32 years, as long as I can tell. But I guess the way I look at it is that, you know, you look at some of the old breweries in the world, and they've been around since the 1500s.
Yep.
And you know, in the 1500s, every year, more breweries started.
Yep.
And they just kept on coming. And you look after Prohibition, you look before Prohibition, you look, you know, after this last Renaissance, breweries come out. And it's not a guarantee you're going to make it. But I've never felt that there wasn't room for one more brewery.
Yeah.
But then it becomes your due diligence. It becomes the fact that there's no God-given right that you produce a product and it goes on the shelf. Once you produce a quality product, it's up to you to go on out and do, you know, your sales. You have to, you know, do your tastings. You have to convince people. You have to, you know, earn it. It's, you know, I've seen brewers complain and whine about the fact that, oh, I should be in this place because Miller's there, or something, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You know, all these brewers have been paying their dues for years and years and years, but right now it's still the peak of people loving craft beer. There's still more people drinking craft beer this year than last year.
Yep.
And it's not, and that's going to continue. I mean, it's a great product. It's a very sessionable product. You can sit there and, you know, have a couple and still drive home, and it just it's good. So I don't know. I guess I probably was long-winded with that answer, but
That's all right, as long as you want.
But yeah, no, but
we got plenty.
I still think you could.
Film.
You can still you know, start a brewery today and still make it. You just have to have the quality, and you have to have the drive, and cash is king. That's the other thing, I guess. Quality and cash. So you can't do it and, you got to pay your bills.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's the hard part. Doing both those together, it's very difficult. Quality and paying the bills, but that's what you got to do, and that's what you got to find out or a way to do it.
Now, do you think we're gonna, Boston Brewing, Dogfish Head, just happened recently. You think that's going to be a trend now in craft beer, where you're going to have larger breweries, or maybe even smaller ones, merging together to try and stay alive, or we'll have more people just fall out?
Well, the thing that I'm seeing is a graying of the industry. Is that there's a lot of guys that have been in the industry, for 20, 25 years, and they put their heart and soul into it, and there's only so much time that you can put into one, and then all of a sudden a nice deal comes along, or somebody says something, or somebody gets into a health concern, and they're going to have to sell, and because of this, there's going to be these mergers and acquisitions that are going to come about, and it's not because of people want to get out or get rich or anything of that sort. It's basically, they put their time in, their dues. They've been in the trenches, and they got to move on. And so it's not going to be. So there's a lot of that. There's also a lot of these. I think after 5-6 years of the the venture capital people, they eventually want to return. Otherwise, they'll sell off. Right. And you're going to see some of the bigger breweries, I think, if they're taking on some of this money, you're going to see some transactions occurring with them also, because this time period's coming up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want any more of these other two? I don't know. I got.
What was the last one?
Yeah, do you want to talk about this Black Friday Triple X a little bit?
Yeah, the Triple X is something we did special last year. We always take a couple barrels and we store them away. We've got more squirreled away from this last year, and we're squirreling more away now. And we mixed a couple of them, and you can tell it's a little bit different. Maybe you can drink them side by side. Maybe you can get your feeling of it. But to me, it's a little
really
different.
Good.
And because of some of the background noise, you may have said this. I apologize if I missed it. 1,000 bottles. Is
1,000 bottles of that one.
Is all you get of this one.
Maybe this one here. Maybe if you want to try them here, maybe pour yourself a different one, and you can tell the difference between the two that you got. But to me, it's a little more of the wood flavor, I think, is what dominates a little more in there.
Do you know which one had it?
That one. That one was
Probably
really
a little more aromatic and a little more intense. You always got your you still have what they call like an angel sherry, a little bit of evaporation.
Yeah, that one.
It does mature. You think, because you talk about, we talked about the aging seal on the bottle, but it ages within the barrel too.
Yeah. You can definitely taste the difference there for sure. Man, those are both good.
That Triple X has got a really, really, really smooth finish to it.
Yeah.
We got to make sure G gets some of this.
We'll get her some.
We still got about half a bottle left of each, so
it'll be a long drive home if she doesn't.
Yeah. So we'll kind of wrap this up with a question I think I probably know the answer to, because the way you've talked throughout this podcast, you know your stuff. You've been doing this for 32 years. Do you still love doing this? You still love coming to work every day?
Oh yeah,
brewing beer.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I do enjoy it. I do come, and I really enjoy coming here in our beer hall and seeing people. I love people on the tours, seeing smiles on their faces. I love going out to the bars and our restaurants, and people sit there and say, "We love your product. It sells well for us." And to me, the Milwaukee is the beer city, and that's what we try to do. We try to keep that heritage going and trying to keep it going. And to me, it's just amazing too. After 32 years, there's still a lot to do here. You think you got everything done, everything's been spent your money on, and it's just there's always project after project still, and that's what you got to do. If you stay the same, you're going to die. But you have to continue to innovate. You have to continue to improve. And that's what every brewery has to do. I mean, if you stop doing that, you're going to die as a brewery.
There you go.
Good stuff.
I can't think of anything else better to end on than that. I mean,
Lakefront Brewery, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You want to give the address?
1872 North Commerce Street.
If you're in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, stop by Lakefront Brewery. It is a fantastic
and do the tour.
Fantastic brewery. It will be, I promise you, it will be one of the best brewery tours you will ever go on.
Absolutely.
You'll enjoy it. You'll laugh. You'll drink. Plenty of space here to enjoy the visit. So come to Milwaukee, hit Lakefront.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks
we appreciate
a lot, Russ.
it.
Appreciate it.
We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we're always gonna hang out.